Beethoven's favorite food? Banana. Okay, we're ready. There's people waiting all over the world for this. Can I go ahead, Victoria? Are we okay?
Oh, yes.
Yeah?
Go right ahead.
All right. So I'm thrilled to be here. Are we on? Are we in?
Yeah.
Okay. So, my coat is made in Japan. There are people in Japan watching. Hi, Hideko and Junko and family. Hello to my friends in Hawaii, in Canada, in India, Brazil, all over the world. Happy to be here. We have an amazing group of people here, and we're all bonded as one. We have an amazing live stream over the internet going on right now. So everybody's mind and their hearts are all open here. People are projecting their bodies into this space, and it's quite exciting. So this is the Wave Street Studio. It's a holy ground. It's a spring-loaded floor. There's a magnificent stone wall behind here. And Rhett, are you here? Come on out and give us a wave here. I really, this is the man who's put the whole system together here, and there's going to be a lot going on in this particular studio. So give us a little wave. Hi, come on up. Yeah. So they had sold out They had to add another concert last night. Sold out. March 1st, my favorite didgeridoo player, John Villa, is going to be here. And don't miss it. He's just beyond awesome. And if you want to get on their mailing list, if you want to leave us an email contact, you can do that in the back. Truly, this would not have happened without my friend Jennifer McKnight. Jennifer, would you just say hi? She's the amount of time she put in, and she really just got what we were doing and put in the love vibration. So everything that you see here is really her technical expertise, which I really don't have, and I thank you, Jennifer, very much. Nobody. We used to teach together in London in the old days, and she's actually quite famous all around the world. So grab her and talk to her. She's hiding out in Pacific Grove, as so many do, like Ed Jarvis and all these other people, and so many people hiding out in Pacific Grove. Pacific Grove is a holy place. Okay, we're going to start with this program, and I thank everybody in for tuning in, and this is a happy time. We have the Lord Ganesha here, and we're going to celebrate him tonight. This show is dedicated to him and Shiva and Parvati, and it's a very exciting thing. I always dreamed about going to the Ganesha festival in Bombay, and I finally made it, and I had a marvelous host named Harinder, a lovely Sikh lady who does 5-star green hotels in India, and you're going to see the whole deal. We'll see if we can get this going. There we go. And all right, technology. Okay, this is the entry to the beach. And it's the beach that you saw in Slumdog Millionaire. And everybody's bringing their Ganeshas to the beach, and they're going to do ceremony at the beach like this. Some of them in small families, some of them in large groups, some of them with official pujaris. So the way this is designed, I hope, is it's going to be... I'm trying to turn the sound down a little bit. There we go. The sound is Monsoon Point. If anybody wants to get a really great, amazing CD, it's called Monsoon Point, and it's just divine beginning to end. So this here is in a private home, and this was the piece that we used to publicize the event, and really quite beautiful. You can see the love that's been put into it. And literally there's millions of people in Bombay who have built altars to Ganesha. And Ganesha is the most beloved god in India of them all. And technically he's the son of Shiva. But the story is a little bit more complex in the sense that Shiva would go off to the mountains and meditate for long periods of time, and his wife Parvati would get a little bored, and so one day she actually rubbed the dirt from her body and created Ganesha, who was like a handsome young man. And she put him in harm's way to guard her bath so nobody would intrude. And eventually, we know that Shiva is going to return. And Shiva returns, and he sees this warrior, this handsome guy there, and he wants to go in and interrupt Parvati's bath, and he says, "No, you can't go in." He says, "What do you mean I can't go in? I'm Shiva." And they don't know each other, so Shiva just kills him, cuts his head off, and then he goes in, and obviously Parvati's a little bit miffed, and Shiva's very apologetic, and he says, "I'll go out and I'll take the head of the first being that I see, and I'll put it on his head, and that'll be it." And so he goes out, and the first thing he sees is an elephant. He cuts the elephant's head off and puts it on Ganesha's head. And he becomes the elephant god. This is a luminous screen. I hope everybody can see pretty well. This is in a private home in the slums of Bombay. We went to my friend's servant's house, to their house, and this is their altar. They probably had, 10 people living in 2 rooms. This is the large number of people. Only a fool would go out in this large number of people, and there I was. It got dangerous sometimes. And throughout the city there are these divine creations, and these are the altars that are built sometimes in private houses, sometimes as luminous displays. And we moved around. I was with a young Indian man who was kind of making sure I didn't get trampled. This is the main entrance to the second largest temple in the city, and this is what's inside. Can you see? You can look up there too. The first largest temple, they had an article in the paper, a guy waited 17 hours to get into that temple in line. So to give you some idea of the level of dedication. And these are like little tableaus, and there's lots of little details. There's different gods hanging around and different ideas. This is an altar that was dedicated to women, and on 2 sides, and something to do with reproductive rights there in the lower right-hand corner. Mother Teresa, Indira Gandhi, the lovely astronaut, who's popular all throughout India. And Ganesha's kind of got a little bit of a belly on him. He loves sweets. He loves what are called ladus in particular. They're these round sweets that they make in India. This is Shiva and Parvati, and these are the Himalayas, which we're going to go into later on. And they make this beautiful little tableau honoring them. Shiva's kind of a rascal. This is the going home time, where the trams run at 4 o'clock. There's like 3,000 people in the station. Everybody camped out, and the trains are going to roll up, and everybody's going to fight. Don't panic. I come in peace. I'm just looking for my fun planet. Okay, calm down. I'm not here to rule the planet. I just here to look for my perfect planet. Now, this was a store before the film came out, The Millionaire. This is Harinder's father, a marvelous Sikh man, very holy man who came down and was visiting while I was there. And we just had a wonderful time together. So this is a funny sign. Please do not park car in front of garage. Tires will be deflated. That's pretty clear. So this is a famous teacher. His name is Ramesh Balsekar. A lot of people have read his books. He had an operation before this, so he was feeling a little weak, but he was still giving teachings. And his teacher was Nisargadatta. And I'm going to be talking a little bit about non-dualism, about Advaita. I'm going to be talking a little bit about how that's done, who the new teachers are that are showing up on the scene. And we're going to have a wonderful, wonderful time with this. But he's a legend, and his teacher was Nisargadatta. And Nisargadatta's interviews are called I Am That. And it's considered to be one of the spiritual classics of the 20th century. So I recommend everybody to read, if you're going to read one book, read I Am That. And it's absolutely sensational. And you read it and you reread it. You can see how lovely his eyes are. This is my friend Harinder, who took care of me and was just my dear pal. Made sure I was safe in Bombay. This is me trying to look small. And I'm sorry to have so many photographs of myself in this, but it just happened. This here is very rare. This is the tomb of Nisargadatta's teacher. And it's hidden in a crematorium where they burn bodies in Bombay. And this was his memorial. And Nisargadatta used to go and meditate here. And so it's quite unusual to see this photograph. Nisargadatta sold cigarettes. He had no education. Look at that. Oh my God. So they're going to take all of these statues and they're going to throw them into the water with all their accoutrements and everything. And they're going to bring truckloads of them down. And they're trying to make the situation more green now in India, so they have green teams picking up the beaches. They're trying to get more eco-friendly Ganeshas to throw in the water, like made of sugar or something, so they dissolve. Yeah. So this is a truck, a family's coming down, and this may be the biggest day of the year for a family to come in and honor Ganesha. Ganesha is the overcomer of obstacles. Look at this guy. He looked through one eye all night long. Can you imagine? So he's dressed as Hanuman, the monkey god, obviously having a good time. So at the beginning of any journey, the beginning of a new sound studio, the beginning of a school, the beginning of any kind of adventure, they invoke a Ganesha. One of the nice things was my friend Harinder's house was on the parade route, and it was 2 blocks from the beach. So this is all ladies. This would be a family bringing their family Ganesha down.
And they do the colored powder like they do at Foley and...
Not so much. Not so much. It's just a colorful thing. Now, this family just wanted to be photographed, and they just said, "Oh, take our picture." So they were so lovely and so present. You just get to see the light in everybody's eyes. And basically, I'm going to talk a little bit about India, how India is changing. So Ganesha had one broken tusk, and I'm going to tell you the story about that. This is one of my favorite pictures. These guys were just so joyous and so happy and so on, and they kept coming closer and closer to me, and I'm going, stay back, stay back. And they were just deliriously happy. This movement of the pictures is called the Ken Burns effect on the on the computer, and it was used by Ken Burns in his baseball series and his Civil War series, and actually named after him. I love the pink fingernails on this guy. Now this is sort of a Ganesha that's sort of in the style of Shirdi Sai Baba, who died in 1915, and you'll see another picture of him later on. Usually he's shown with his leg crossed over his knee, so you know it's him. He usually has an orange robe. And he is, of the live saints, he's probably the most beloved saint in India, because he's sort of half Hindu and he's sort of half Muslim. He was a Hindu who lived in an abandoned mosque. So part of the idea here is that we could have made the pictures move faster, but I wanted you to have like a feeling of meditation in this, because we're all going to have our obstacles overcome here. It's not just a little show. Where like Ganesha is blessing you, and you're blessing Ganesha. So any obstacles you want to have overcome, you can just let them go here.
All of these end up in the river.
They all get thrown up in the ocean here. In like at the Durga festival in Calcutta, which is the second greatest festival in India, or maybe the first greatest festival in India, they throw it all in the river. And it's just total chaos. They take it down a muddy slope. This was much easier because there's lots of space on the beach. Now this is kind of a cool shot. Here's Shiva coming out of the side of the statue. So it was the only one like this, so it was really quite unusual. Usually you see these lines on the forehead, 3 lines, and usually that's an indication that it's Shiva. This is an altar that was on the beach as you came into that entryway in the first picture. Look how rich those colors are. Now this is Shirdi Sai Baba here in the orange robe. This is one of my favorite of all the pictures. So Shirdi in India, which is outside of Bombay, has become like Lourdes. It's become a huge pilgrimage place. There's like 40,000 people there at any given day. I went there in 1982, and there was like just a dusty little village. Shirdi Sai Baba was really quite amazing. And one of my favorite stories is that he was sitting around with some of his friends, and a little lizard gecko came out and went chirp, chirp, chirp like this. And one of his devotees sort of jokingly said, well, Shirdi, what does this mean? And he said, oh, it means his sister's coming from Aurangabad today, which is 40 miles away, which in those days was a really great distance. So everybody laughed and thought he was telling a joke. And a rider rode up on a horse and threw his pack down on the floor and came into the mosque, and a gecko, a lizard, jumped out of his pack. And the 2 lizards ran together in front of everybody and leapt in the air and spun around and ran off. So in the early morning in the ashrams, they sing to Ganesha first thing. They go, Ganesha Sharanam, Sharanam Ganesha, Ganesha Sharanam, Sharanam Ganesha, Ganesha Sharanam, Sharanam Ganesha, in a better voice than mine. So now we're shifting out of the festival in Bombay. And it's interesting to note, if you're really into reading a great book, read Shantaram. It's about this thick, and you won't be able to put it down. They've made a movie out of it that'll come out this year. It was hugely popular, and one of the reasons why the terrorists shot up Leopold's Cafe, which was next to the Taj Mahal Hotel, is that all the characters in Shantaram hung out at Leopold's Cafe, which was founded in 1871. So they were actually trying to kill all the tourists who were there because of the book. So now we've moved up to Rishikesh, and Rishikesh is where the Beatles went in the old days with Maharishi. And this is a view from my room the first day, even as I was checking into my room. So I'm looking across the valley. Rishikesh is down below by the river. I'm up high, and I thought this was auspicious to have a beautiful rainbow. Rooms in non-high season about $6 a day. This guy here was awesome. He was a real old-time snake charmer. He had a license to have snakes, and he had just caught this snake just the day before. And this is a cobra. So Shiva always has cobras wrapped around his neck, which is kind of fun. And this is the musical instrument that he played. And he was a very sincere guy. And he would just show up periodically and people would give him money. There's an Om sign on his hat. This is a lemur, and just in downtown Rishikesh, up in the trees, the lemurs were hanging out. And they were quite a happy family. Nobody hassled them. People would give them peanuts and stuff like that. This is one, a baby feeding with the mother. Sometimes you'd be going down the road and you'd see a 50 lemur family, just on the side of the road. So in Rishikesh, there are 2 restaurants, and they used to be owned by the same family, and they are like dueling banjos, like they're trying to lure customers in, and they have this guy sitting out front of one of them. And this guy's sitting outside of the other. All right, let's see. Which one do you want to eat in? So this is where I hung out every sunset. I swam in the Ganges every day. This is the Ganges coming down very cold. And I found a place where I could swim against the current and stay in the same place. This is my friend Swami Das, and he's a remarkable fellow. He's a fine teacher. And he was with his teacher in Agra for 24 years from the Radhaswami lineage. And he was a very, very sincere guy, very humble. And we really were friends, and we hung out together in every sunset, and we swam together. A remarkable fellow. Now this guy here is the last of the old guys in Rishikesh. Most of them have died off. This guy is known as Dandi Swami, and he's virtually unknown. He sits on the beach right where we were, maybe 3 or 4 evenings a week. He's illuminated by one light bulb, and he's got a little loudspeaker system. They tape his talks. He's sitting on a deerskin, and normally he's naked. But he wears clothes on the beach. And I asked his permission to photograph him. And then when I gave him a picture of this picture, he just laughed. He was a wonderful guy. And we never understood a word that he was saying. We just sat every day in meditation. Now this picture is just a totally delight. This guy here is Hanuman. He's dressed as Hanuman, and he goes around blessing people, and they give him offerings. And you can see what a sweet guy he is, so pure and really bringing a lot of happiness. Look how big his thumbs are and his hands. And Hanuman was the servant of Rama and Sita. Now this is something that you won't see. This is the old Maharishi ashram in Rishikesh. And this was the famous place that the Beatles went to. These were meditation huts. Maharishi had some tax things going on, and so he couldn't come back and claim his property afterwards. So he lived in Holland, he lived in Switzerland, and he never made it back here. So this is 14 acres of the primest property in all of Rishikesh that's abandoned and unused, and it's all being overgrown. So it's really quite amazing. And There was a book, if you want to read about that time, it's called All You Need Is Love. It's written by a woman who was a famous model. And Ramesh, what does this say? Can you read it?
Yeah, it says Rajaji Rashtriya Park, which is national park.
National park. Oh, so it's they're turning it into a national park. That's a good idea. And so the woman who was with the Beatles, who was married to Frank Sinatra, anybody remember her name? Mia Farrow. So the Maharishi was infatuated with her, and so he treated everybody because he knew he was going to become famous from the association with the Beatles. And so Mia Farrow sat in the front seat, and then he was doing an initiation with her, and normally he would stroke people's hair maybe during the, and so he stroked her hair, and she freaked out and thought he was making a pass at her, and they really tried to explain that he wasn't, but she said, "I know the difference between a pass and a puja." So this is right on the Ganges there, looking across, an incredible piece of property. And they would, if you were with the right person, they would say John Lennon stayed here, and different people like that. Donovan showed up, all kinds of. It was an amazing time. And if you imagine that literally hundreds of thousands of people were initiated by Maharishi, literally changed the history of consciousness in the United States, and quite remarkable. And taught transcendental meditation, which is now paid for by the English government as part of the National Health Plan because it's been proven to lower blood pressure. So all you people on Lipitor and all of that, get out there and meditate and take the stress reduction program at community hospital or something like that. So Maharishi was on the Steve Allen show the first time that he showed up, who was an interviewer back in the old days. And so he sat up, he's on national television for the first time, and he sits in the chair with his legs crossed, and Steve Allen looks at him and he says, "Where are your legs?" And everybody burst into laughter all across the country. And then later on, he was, that was supposed to be funny. Anyway. So, and later on he was interviewed by Merv Griffin. And when he was interviewed by Merv Griffin, he became really famous. And I found out that the person who introduced Maharishi to Merv Griffin was Clint Eastwood. And so I said to Clint Eastwood at a party one day, I said, "Did you really introduce Maharishi to Merv Griffin?" And he said, "Yes, I did." So Clint Eastwood changed the history of consciousness in the United States.
So what are those little structures?
Sorry?
What are the little stone structures?
They're meditation huts that people actually lived in and meditated in. So this would be like the future archaeological ruins. So I'm about to go up into the Himalayas. Okay, this is on an easy street, on an easy curve, and this guy went over and crashed the day that I was there, and you come to, oh my God, and he fell about 30 feet, so it could not have been pretty. And I'm going to go up in the Himalayas on really seriously dangerous roads here. So it was not really encouraging. This is the Bansuri flute, and this is a wonderful fellow who played every evening at sunset, and he was pals with Swami Das, and we hung out. So now we're going up into the Himalayas. This is a restaurant on the main square, just open air like that, very busy, fresh food, competing restaurant across the way, not as busy.
What's the name of the little town? What's the name of the town?
This town is called Joshimath, and I'm going to tell you a lot about it. In the old days, everybody got to Joshimath, and then there was no transportation up into the Himalayas. You had to walk. And now you can drive all the way up to Badrinath, which I'll tell you about in a minute. So in Joshimath, there's a funicular that will take you up so you can see these extraordinary peaks of the Himalayas. It takes about 25 minutes to go up, and it's very, very dramatic. This is the top of it. Bucolic, I think is the right word. Now, this is the famous mountain Nanda Devi, and this is an amazing view of it. This is the largest mountain near there, and at the base of that, over on the other side of the mountain you can trek to, is where Lahiri Mahashai met the great Saint Babaji, and the rest is history. And it's also where Hanuman came to pick up the herbs to save Ram and his brother from dying. A very holy place. So you can just see how the Himalayas were pushed up here. Very, very dramatic. And on the top of the Himalayas, as high as you can go, they find fossils, sea fossils. So it used to be a seabed. It was just pushed up in the most enormous way possible. And if you imagine that during the tsunami, it's a statistic you can't even grasp. The bottom of the ocean ripped open a chasm 5 miles a second.
Wow.
So just you can't even grasp that. 5 miles a second. That's what created the tsunami. So you can imagine what pushes up the Himalayas. And all of this is covered with snow in the winter. It's a ski resort as well. So now I'm on a pilgrimage that I took on behalf of my friend Sadhanam Singh to a place called Hemkund. And it's holy to the Sikhs. And these are a dessert called gulab jamun, and these were the best ones I ever had. They were like totally fresh, not too sweet. Don't you want to just dive in? So Hemkund is where if the Muslims go to Mecca, the Sikhs go to Hemkund in the mountains. And old ladies, old men, they take horses, they take donkeys, they walk, and I went up here and I trekked up about 16,000 feet. I took a backpack, and it was really spectacular. So Hemkund is famous for the Sikh saint Guru Gobind Singh, who lived there. And Sadhanam told me Guru Gobind Singh had really long arms down to his knees, so that he won all of his sword battles in the old days. So the Sikhs had their 10 teachers, and the 10th teacher said, okay, enough with teachers. The holy book, the Guru Granth Sahib, which had all of the teachers' writings and teachings in it, is going to become the teacher. So this is where we trek to. This is a mountain lake that is cold. So Sadhanam, this one's for you. So you hold on to a chain, and then I had been swimming in the Ganges, so I thought, hey, I'll just push out and hang out in the middle of the lake a little bit. And this is the building, and when you get there, they give you free soup and they give you free tea for every pilgrim who comes through. So you get dal and rice, and you get some tea, and it's really quite lovely. It's a real service-oriented organization. They really take care of their people, and the same way at the Golden Temple in Amritsar. Kund means lake, so this is Hemkund.
David, what's the elevation up there?
It's about 15,500 feet, I think. The highest, this is called the Valley of the Flowers. And this is, most people go in June, July, August when there's real flowers there. So there was virtually nobody there, and I hiked deep, deep, deep into the valley. And it was really, really astonishing. And I hiked way past where the flowers were, and I was determined to get to the end of the valley, and I didn't make it. And there were 2 Spanish guys just trekking through, and they blew by me, and then I hiked some more, and I went through muddy bogs, and then I just gave up, and they also gave up too, and they came out. So this is the town that you hike to. So you hike 8 hours from the main town, which it takes you hours and hours and hours just to get to, and then you go to this town, and you spend overnight in this town, and then you hike up to Hemkund from here or into the Valley of the Flowers.
David, what makes Hemkund sacred to?
It's sacred because Guru Gobind Singh went there.
Where is it?
7 incarnations.
It's north of Rishikesh, and basically I'm going to tune you into how this works in just a minute. So now we've moved from Hemkund in the Valley of the Flowers. And so the scenario I want you to get is that there's 4 pilgrimage sites that we're going to go to 3 of them. And I've been to all 4, but I'm going to show you 3 of them. And the highest one is Badrinath, which is you can drive to. So it's now become hugely popular. There's all kinds of ashrams. There's even a 5-star hotel. There's internet. There's fabulous hot springs. And then there's Kedarnath, which is where the spine of Shiva is, and that I'm not going to show you today. And then there's Gangotri, which is the source of the Ganges, where you actually hike to where the water comes out of the glacier. And then the 4th one is called Yamunotri, which is the beginning of the Yamuna River. And so all of these places, when I went 20 years ago, there was nobody there. And now it's just like huge movement of the Indian middle class up into this area. This is a holy cave, is 5,111 years old, and this is the cave where Vyasa wrote the Mahabharata in the old days. And he broke his pen while he was writing, and Ganesha, who we all know and are familiar with now, broke off his tusk and gave it to Vyasa so he wouldn't miss a word of the Mahabharata. And for you people who are into Netflix and all of that, the play, the Mahabharata, is absolutely out of this world. I saw the original production in New York, and it's sensational. It's about 6 hours long. So these are my Russian friends, and these guys are awesome. This guy, he's like a sadhu guy. This guy knew more about Hinduism than most Hindus, and this guy was a lawyer from Moscow. And so we're hanging out in front of the cave. Wonderful guys. So this is where I'm going to win the free prize in the Chronicle, beware of pickpockets and cloth lifters. It's not the Catholic Church. It is the hot springs in Badrinath. So now we're going to continue to Yamunotri, and this is the hot springs of the beginning of the Yamuna River. And it's hard to get to, but it's only a 2-hour hike while you're there. And so these are all. This is where I ate every day, and these are sweets here. There's samosas in the back, and more sweets on the left, and some peppers, and very, very primitive here. The site is wiped out periodically by landslides. And closed. Now this is the kitchen here, if you can imagine what this is like. This is a motley crew. And this guy was making legendary food, like 5-star hotel Indian food, like out of that one batch of oil there. So this is the hot springs. The river's origining up there. The priests here were sort of, I think this is the hot springs. The men were treated better than the women, as usual in India. And this was a very good quality hot springs. The water was clean. It was really, really nice. If you needed oxygen, there was available down at the bottom. And the priests in the temples tend to be, the word avaricious might come to mind. They've had thousands of years of experience of extracting money from pilgrims, and they're really kind of relentless in India. So there's really kind of a definition, a change in what's happening in India. I spoke at the World Peace Conference in India a few years ago to about 3,000 people with about 5 saints in front. And all of the people who spoke at the conference talked about what's called the Sanatana Dharma. And the Sanatana Dharma is the path of truth, which was sort of almost before Hinduism. And so they're trying to get around all of the money ideas and all of the avariciousness and trying to get at the idea of truth in India. And it's a very, very strong movement which includes peace for all people and all religions. This is a town to the right of the trail which I hiked to, and had very much a feeling of Nepal. This was the hike up into the main temple. This is a cut wooden ladder that maybe who knows how many millions of pilgrims have hiked up it. You can just see how worn it is. And this is the outside of the building. Very, very unusual to see it braced like this. I've never seen a building quite like it. And so you're hiking up literally 3 floors to a tiny little shrine room in the top of the building. And nobody knows how old this building is. People have tacked coins to it, and these are like very Nepalese kind of wood carvings. So maybe people migrated from Nepal to this town because it was up high in the Himalayas. This is an old Ganesha in the post. Very sweet. This is where my photo from my hotel room. This is Potato Central. Everybody in the region sent their potatoes here. They were bagged and weighed and sold and sent out to market in the main towns. This guy here, I was sitting in my hotel room like this, and I heard his song come across the waves, and I literally jumped up. I went, "Who is this guy? Where is this? Is this a recording? Is this live?" And I ran down to the first floor and I started hunting around for him. And here he was, and this was a real holy man singing holy songs. He's only got 2 strings on his musical instrument. He's got 2 little snakes up there at the top of the strings. And this guy sang so beautifully. And you really get an idea of how important it is, in the third world to start having some dental care. It's really an issue. It's terrible. I had 1 tooth bad coming back, and you can imagine. So there's going to be a little bit of a switch in time here. Okay, this is Goa, and I came out of the pilgrimage up in the Himalayas, and I went beach. And I hadn't planned to go to Goa at all. So St. Francis Xavier came to Goa, and the Christians took over the area. It was actually controlled by and owned by the Portuguese. There's 4 great churches left in one place, and this is one of them. And they literally ruled Goa until I think 1966. Now, St. Francis Xavier was the main priest there. He actually died somewhere out in China. And then when the Catholic Church decides to beatify somebody or sanctify them, they disinter their bodies to find out if they're really who they think they are. And they disinterred his body, and these are photographs of his actual body. And according to my guidebook, his left shoulder had been carved up pretty well because of relic seekers. And I actually have a bone fragment of Junipero serra. I do. So this is actually St. Francis Xavier when they exhumed him and they photographed him. The head of the Junipero serra Society was my patient, and he came to me with a gold thing, and when they disinterred his body for his beatification and all of that, they took a couple of bone fragments as
as relics. And he said, I give this to you. I said, you're giving this to me because you need one more miracle for him to be a saint. You think it's going to happen in my office? And he said, yeah.
Is he mummified? Or is that?
You know, who knows what they do to the bodies? You know, it's a tropical climate, so it's a wonder anything's left. So this is the actual tomb, and it was a big tourist site. There were Muslim families with women in full chadors and children running around. It was very busy, so it's very popular. Goa is basically overrun by tourists, and they actually fly in, as starting December 1, they fly in charters from Europe. These are the old church in downtown, main town. And they fly in charters, and they're just coming in 3 a week, all until well into February. And so every beach is full. So these guys here, I love these guys. They're the twins. I've gone from Goa to Puttaparthi, where Sai Baba has been for all of his life. And these guys are fabulous photographers and old-time pals of mine. And they're as loving of brothers as you'll ever see. They're like my loving sisters in Japan, Junko and Hideko, the most beautiful people you can imagine. So Sai Baba is 83 years old. I was there for his birthday. He's in a wheelchair, a motorized wheelchair, and moving around. His darshan lasts about 3 minutes, maybe if he's giving a talk longer. There's still large crowds of people showing up, and you're going to see something very unusual in a minute here. My friend Krishna has been living in Puttaparthi for 14 years. And, you know, he's long stories about him. He's one of the most beautiful saints you've ever seen in your life. And one day, sacred ash started coming out of photographs in his house in 27 places in one night. And so this is called vibhuti. It's like when your ego's burned up, when everything's burned up, the only thing that's left is ash. It would be the ashes of the cremation ground even. And they come out of Sai Baba's hands like this spontaneously. And this is a phenomenon that's happened all over the world. It happens up in Kalusa, outside of, in Route 5 up north. There's honey coming out of pictures of Sai Baba's feet. There's honey coming out of Jesus' heart. There's honey coming out of Mary's heart. There's vibhuti everywhere. There's water coming out of no source. It's really quite extraordinary. So here's 27 places. There's Mother Mira down below there. She's coming to San Francisco soon. If anybody wants to see her, go on the web. So this is spontaneously comes out of the picture. So something's going on here that we don't understand. This is a woman named Raja Rajeshwari, and she's sort of the divine feminine, distant aspect of Sai Baba in Mysore. And you see the vibhuti coming out of the top of her head there and her shoulder. This is Amachi down here. This is a new guy in town. Vishwananda, I think is his name. So what's going on here? How does this phenomenon? It happens all over the world. You know, jewels falling out of the air and amazing things. This is dear Krishna in Puttaparthi. I call him the mayor of Puttaparthi. And, you know, he would be a great teacher, but he teaches by example. You know, he's kind to everybody. There's not a beggar anywhere who asks him for money that he just doesn't give a smile to and say, you know, I really acknowledge you as a human being. This is a rainbow that appeared over the ashram one day. So we're going to be talking a little bit about Advaita, and I'm going to be talking a lot about Ramana Maharshi. This is a new teacher. He's extraordinary. He's out of Venezuela. His name is Cesar, and maybe we'll get him to come here to the peninsula. And he's an incredible teacher of Advaita, of non-dualism, where you just go in and you ask, who am I? And that's it. Who? And then you find out, well, who's asking, who am I? right? And you're in self-inquiry all the time, and until you realize that you're not your mind, and then you realize that your mind is your servant, and you realize that your mind's been controlling you all of the time, and you thought that was real, but it's not. And they're trying to teach you that what we are is one undivided consciousness, literally all over the entire planet, and that we work towards eliminating our ego and getting to the absolute pure truth, and that ego is really the problem in this process. And so he's very, very patient, and when he woke up, he just started laughing, right? and people who wake up, they often disappear. So and you don't see them. Who is this guy? So like Master Teacher in Wisconsin, who's the only white man I know in the world who really enlightened, he died last year. When he got enlightened, he just went into a cabin in the Wisconsin woods for 10 years before he could actually come out and function. So Caesar, you want to run like when you start to get that laughter thing going, but he decided to stay and teach people because his teacher did the same thing. The Zen teachers say that when you finally get it, you just start to, you're walking down the street and you just start to laugh, you know, and then you're kind of pissed off because it's so simple, you know, and you've been working so hard. Okay, so now we're moving from there, and we're moving to the holy mountain of Arunachala, which is in the town of Tiruvannamalai, and this is where the great Saint Ramana Maharshi lived. And Ramana Maharshi said that the mountain Arunachala is Shiva himself. Okay, so let's keep that in mind. And Shiva's the father of Ganesha, sort of. And so I went to Arunachala the first time in 1982, and it was literally the hottest day of my life, anywhere on the planet. It was April 10, it was my birthday, and I just lay in bed and hallucinated for like 8 hours before I could even move. It was that hot. And so now I'm back, you know, so many years later. You know, it was a sleepy little place before, and now it's become a huge center with many teachers, some enlightened people. Many of the American teachers and international teachers are going there with their groups, particularly in December and January. And so we're gonna enter into the energy of Arunachala. Okay. So there's 1 million people coming for one day to Arunachala to walk around the mountain, okay, in a clockwise direction. Normally it takes 4 hours. It takes about 7 with, 15 people across, almost body to body for 7 hours around the mountain. So this is Ramana Maharshi. He attained enlightenment spontaneously when he was 16 years old. He looks about 16 in this picture. I'm told he's about 21 in this picture. So here he just hung out, you know. I mean, he literally was in complete full enlightenment. People had to feed him and take care of him. And then he started to, they built an ashram around him, and in a sense he was like a prisoner, which is kind of like the ultimate irony, because you get out of prison and then they put you in prison. So it's like nowhere to go, nothing to do. No thought, complete merged in the divine continuum. So this is him as an older man. This is a spectacular photograph. He shaved his head and his beard on every full moon. He was discovered by, he became famous from a guy named Paul Brunton, who wrote a series of books. One was called In Search of Secret India. And he actually met the Shankaracharya of the South and said, "Will you be my teacher?" And he said, "No, I'm not your teacher. I'm like a very conservative Hindu guy with a big following. Go, Ramana Maharshi's your teacher." So he went to see Ramana Maharshi. He wrote about him, and then the whole world beat a path to Ramana Maharshi's door. And he was an amazing human being. And I think he died around 1950-51. And then they abandoned his ashram. This is the most famous picture of him. And you can just kind of relax into this one for a minute, because this is what I call a transmission photograph. And he was known for the glance that heals, the glance that enlightens. You can't even imagine what the cosmic energy that was coming off of this guy might have been. I'm going to show you one of his students in a minute, some guy who was like so off the charts in my whole life I haven't seen, who attained enlightenment through the Ramana Maharshi tradition. So the books on the Ramana Maharshi are by David Godman, Godman, and they're really quite wonderful. There's kind of like a series of his teachings, and then there's 3 books called The Presence, which are stories from people who knew Ramana Maharshi. And this one lady, she says, look, Ramana Maharshi died, everybody left, abandoned the ashram, and Ramana Maharshi's talking to me, going like, yeah, I'm still here, I never left. And she stayed. She lived at the ashram, and then people started coming back, and now it's one of the most popular places anywhere in the world for people who really want to wake up and really want to do self-inquiry, like, who am I? You know, I remember Ross Perot's vice president. He came out and he said, who am I? How did I get here? He's probably our most enlightened politician. So this is a wonderful picture, isn't it? This is the bed in which Ramana Maharshi died, April 14th. The original calendar is still up there. This is the bed. There's his water pot right there. And they had the first place that he was buried was like just a wooden building. You can actually see the pictures of it, you know, in the archives. And I got a personal tour of the archives, which was out of this world. I'll show you the guy who runs it in a minute. And they've preserved all of Ramana Maharshi's sacred relics and everything associated with him in a temperature-controlled room and humidity-controlled. I mean, like with a level of organization that you never see in India. So these are wanted posters of bad guys in India. And one of the things I love to do is take pictures of other people's pictures. So as you walk around the parade route, they had these pictures up in case you've seen any of these people. And these are women, really, really bad women. So we're walking around, I'm walking around the mountain. There's 1 million people going to walk around in 24 hours. So we started at 7:30 in the morning. And I'm with a wonderful friend of mine named Meg Lundstrom, who's a fabulous writer. And she is an old friend of mine. She interviewed me for one of her books. And we hung out together. And I got her out of her cave to walk around the mountain and go guru hopping, which you're not supposed to do. Tremendous air of festivity, tremendous happiness. And what they're going to do at the nighttime, you say, who is this guy? Is this Ross Perot? This guy was just walking down the street. These are called Rudraksha beads. They're called tears of Shiva. He's smeared with sandalwood, and he's just the most beautiful guy. I asked his permission to take this picture, and he nodded. He said I was okay. And he's carrying a shrine, and people are dropping money in his bucket, and he's just the total dude. So we don't know how long this is going to last in India. There's 300 million cell phones in India. So this guy here is like San Francisco, you know, where guys stand and they don't move for like an hour, and people give them money, right? So he's dressed as Mahatma Gandhi on the side of the road. And isn't he beautiful?
Looks like he's covered in silver.
He's covered in silver. There's his little money thing. People drop money in it. And he's not moving. I mean, this guy didn't blink. And you can't imagine what an impact, Gandhi has had on the societies, on all the bills of money and all of that kind of thing. They gave out free food on the way and free tea and all kinds of stuff like that. Lovely tree in the background there. This is a family, a beautiful child. They've shaved their heads. Maybe they promised Shiva or somebody, if my relative recovers from a disease, I'll shave my head, or different things like that. This is Shiva with all the cobras around him in the background protecting him. Hot. This is a woman called Om Amma, and an Om spontaneously appears on her forehead during various ceremonies and things like that. And, she lives there at Arunachala, and, I heard somebody say, oh, she's fake or that kind of thing, and I went to see her, and she was totally authentic. She's extraordinary, and she has all the Divine Mother energy just coming off of her like that. So this guy was on the side of the road. He handed me a shell. He says, listen to the shell. And I was like on Carmel Beach. Beautiful guy, huh? Very amazing. And he's just sitting there, hanging out by a tree with a shrine. People come and give him money, and he blesses them, and puts a little daub on their forehead.
David, I was struck when we were in Arunachala how the hundreds of sadhus would show up, like for lunch. Is that typical of that community, or?
There's a lot of sadhus who come there, partly because it's good business, and partly because they're real sadhus, and people support them. In India, it's always a question. The holy books say you give to everybody who asks, and I don't. I usually tend to pick one person out, and I give them a lot of money, and then I give to my teachers for their orphanages and stuff like that. So you have to make up your own mind how guilty you want to feel, or it's a struggle always in India, Well, obviously you give everything away, It's like how do you deal, And you just do the best you can. You make up your own philosophy. This is where I'm going to talk about that more in a minute, okay? This is like an anthill where cobras lived, and so they knew that, and they made it a holy shrine. So you see these periodically throughout India, and you know that this is where they honor the snakes. And cobras in the old days in India were a big problem. This is a lovely divine feminine, just on the side of the road. So these are pictures that are for sale, and I take pictures of pictures. This is Kali down here. You can see all the different gods. So did Rick Moss get here? Did Rick?
Yes.
So Rick, you're there?
I'm here.
Great talk today. He was packed out at Pacific Coast Church. They gave him a 5-minute standing ovation before he said a word. So this is Arunachala. I actually saved something that you said here during your talk. I have a present for Bill Little if he ever showed up. So I do take note. I do listen to what you said. He mentioned that Jung said, religion is how mankind defends himself from the experience of God. So this is Arunachala, and you walk around the mountain. There's an inner path that's more, very few people on it. And then there's the outer path, which is on the road, which is what most people do. And there's all kinds of temples. I'm going to stop on this. I chased this butterfly across the field. I want you to know that I worked to get this picture. He wouldn't stop, and I chased him for about 5 minutes. And look at that. Can you imagine? I mean, what do you need? You need to think that like this is church right here. I mean, can you imagine that? Oh my God. Do not try this at home.
Oh, she's standing on.
So this was one of those delightful things. We were trying to get a shortcut and we came across this temple. Didn't even know it was there. So these are the gods. These are the good guys. They're crushing the bad guys' heads underneath their feet. Arunachala's in the background. This is a street artist painting Shirdi Sai Baba. People give him money. This is the crowds of people. This is in the morning, and it was 5 times denser than this by evening. These are people getting their heads shaved. This is the moment that the mountain was set on fire. So this is really pretty cool picture. And it looks small, but if you're up there, it's huge. And they use clarified butter. They use ghee, which burns. So this is the exact moment of the first day from the Ramana Maharshi ashram. This is Ramana Maharshi's tomb as it stands today. So they took the exact place where the wooden building that he was built in, and they built this extraordinary marble tomb. And people come in and they walk around it. There's a big meditation hall, and it's really quite an amazing place. This is a ceremony that they did just after they set the mountain on fire. This is sort of for the inside crowd here. This is Shiva dancing the world into existence, called Tandava, with some real style and pants. You like those? I knew you'd like that. This is a fabulous painting of setting the mountain on fire on top. This is Shiva and Parvati. See the snakes around him and the trident in the background and the Daimaru drum and the Rudraksha beads and the Shiva lingam down below. And this is a dancing Shiva, really a different one. Very unusual. Modern. And this is a famous saint, and they wouldn't let me photograph him, and so we're going out. I knew he was walking back. I'm in a moving auto rickshaw. He's moving. There's traffic. We're going in different directions, and I just shot the picture out like this. So this is a great guy, natty dreads, well known, and he's just walking. He's just walking. Nobody knows who he is. He's just walking through the crowds. There were other teachers there. There was a woman named Shiva Shaktiyama. Now this guy here, his name is Nana Garu, and it was basically like being with 3 Jesuses. Somebody said 3 1/4. But this guy's fully enlightened master. But there's no show. He's surrounded by 200 women who are on pilgrimage with him. He woke up through the Ramana Maharshi tradition, He lives east of Hyderabad. And the divine energy was astonishing. You can probably feel it in the room right now. And the first day, he didn't say a word. He sat there for an hour, and he just... Yeah. And I loved this guy immediately. I was stunned when I met him. And then he would walk up on the top of the balcony and he would just shower divine energy on everybody, just like, and he wasn't doing anything. He was just being. He was the most present human being I've ever seen in my life. And there are a number of people who have awoken through the Ramana Maharshi tradition. There was Papaji, who, when Rajneesh died, everybody rushed over to see Papaji in Lucknow. And David Godman wrote a book about Papaji. It was the best title I ever heard. It was called Nothing Ever Happened. Nothing ever happened. See, that when you die, you realize that nothing ever happened. It's just like that. It's really silly. So Papaji was in way northern India when he was a young man, and he would go up to everybody, all the holy men that came to the door, and he would say, "Have you seen God? Do you know anybody who has?" And that was his question, and he would go again and again, and this guy showed up at his door. This is a true story. It's in David Godman's book. And the guy said, "Well, yeah, I know somebody who has, and he lives down by Arunachala Mountain, and you have to go to Madras, and then you have to take a train, and then you have to take a bus, and then you have to take a bullock cart." This is in the real old days. And so he actually got a job in Madras. He moved his family there. And he had like 10 days before he was going to start work. He got a little advance money. So he gets on the train, he gets on the bus, he gets on the bullock cart, and he walks into the hall, and it's the same guy who came to his door. And he is angry. And he stomps out of the hall. He goes to get in the bullock cart, and some guy says, "Well, you seem to be upset, sir." And he says, "Yeah," he says, "I've been asking, have you seen God? Do you know anybody who has? And this guy comes to my door and he tells me to come here and he gives me the address and I move my family here and I take the train, I take the bus, and I take the bullock cart. It's the same guy who came to my door." And the guy said, "Oh," he says, "I'm sorry, sir. Ramana Maharshi has not left the ashram in 26 years. So Gangaji came through this tradition, who's up in San Rafael. She's going to be teaching at Esalen in the near future. So here's this guy, he's no show. He's just awake. He's in the pure unified consciousness, and he has the ability to just give you that vibration. This is an old friend of mine, Kai, divine being. She's living at Arunachala. Is everybody doing okay? You having fun? So this is a rare photograph of Shirdi Sai Baba. There's maybe 5 photographs in existence of him. They put sandalwood paste on the picture to honor it, and some like Ganesh here.
Or you look like him.
This is Om Amma in full trance, just radiating divine mother energy to everybody, and she's just full on. And this is her. You see her hands are doing spontaneous mudras and things like that. So Ganesha's vehicle is a rat. So usually you'll see a little rat somewhere around all the statues. This is my friend Meg with an elephant in the main temple of Tiruvannamalai. They put a rupee in the elephant's mouth and he bops you on the head. This is my friend Werner. Werner's a teacher at Tiruvannamalai. He's a total saint. He lived in a cave for 12 years. The day that he came out of the cave, we went swimming together. So how do we mark the passage of time? And how do we mark the passage of the teachers? Okay, so there's a generation that's passing, okay? And this guy has, his fingernails used to be just curled around like that. I photographed him many years ago and somebody stole my film. So I wanted to go back and see him. His hair is like 23 feet long. So this is what they might call a tapas or an austerity, because it's just, it's a little hard to eat when your fingernails are like 12 inches long. This is, he's just kind of on the edge of departure here, and he's just been hanging out in a little village on the outskirts of Tiruvannamalai for people who can find him, like the Italians. And so now we're going to go backwards in time, and we're going to catch him as he evolved. So he's sitting on a Shiva lingam here. And this is him with long dreadlocks, long fingernails back when he was a younger man. So, Sai Baba's about to pass. Okay, he's about to pass. Da Frijon is gone, master teacher left last year. And so these are the heroes, who have gone in deep and realized that there is an astonishing mystery beyond our wildest imagination. And it's like, who's going to tell you what it is? It's like we know that it's there for sure. And then you just commit yourself, your whole life, to getting closer and closer to what that is in whatever tradition you choose. But you just make your commitment and you reawaken the intensity of your desire and the intensity of your questioning. And they say if your intention is there, you're already won. So we honor these old guys, the old masters, when nobody came perfect, they say every master's got a little flaw. So I can't tell you how fun it was to be with Meg and moving around Arunachala, and she was great. She was friends with the head of the archives. And this is the head of the archives. This is John on a 91 Royal Enfield, and just the nicest guy you could imagine. And the archives are really dialed. They've got all the photos permanently archived. This is the entrance to the ashram, and in the old days. And even today, the sadhus would sit out by the dozens outside for pilgrims to give money to, and they're all over town in various different places. And there's one guy who became famous. He woke up, and he used to sit as a beggar outside that door for 20 years, and his name was Ram Sarat Kumar. And this is him. It's not my photograph. Both of these photographs are not mine, but they give you a sense of how amazing he was. And he was dead broke, and he just lived on alms for 20 years. And then one day, everybody realized this guy woke up, and they actually built a huge temple to him, which was hilarious. And they built a big bronze statue of him in the middle of the temple. And he says, go worship the statue. And he would be sitting over in the corner smoking little beady cigarettes and laughing while everybody was coming and bowing to the statue. And so there's a big book about him, and you can get it at Gateways. And I think Lee Lozowick, I think is his name. Is that right? Is that the right name? Wrote the book about him. What's it like to sit for 20 years and get 10 cents a day? But always, who am I? Who's asking? So we're going to move out of Arunachala for a minute here. And this is a woman named Devi Amma, and she lives in Whitefield outside of Bangalore. And she's a rocket. She speaks very good English, and she is very much in touch with the old rishis of the ancient of days. And her personal rishi is Agastya Rishi, who was one of the most famous. He was a little short guy. And these people are giving and giving and giving and giving and giving some more. This is Agastya Rishi, a painting of him up top with a halo around him, and his consort, who was considered to be the most beautiful woman in the world, and that's Sai Baba in the background, an old photograph of him.
Yeah, I'm close up with that.
So we're coming a little bit towards the end of this wonderful adventure. This is a great Ganesha that I couldn't afford to buy, an old one. This is a great picture of Shiva. And I'm at a beach called Kovalam, which is a sort of an R&R place for people who are burned out on pilgrimage. This is the beach. It's outside of Trivandrum, where everybody goes for Ayurvedic treatments in Kerala. It's about an hour and a half from Amachi's ashram. This is a restaurant, a beautiful picture of Krishna. Okay, now we're going to go back into the Himalayas with the vengeance. Are you ready? So we're coming through Haridwar, which is where Baba Haridas has his orphanage and where he goes in January and February from Mount Madonna Center. And these are sort of just to bathe you in rich images. Shiva is honored everywhere. I mean, in a sense, you could say that he is a manifestation of God himself, but in the Hindu tradition, Shiva is the destroyer, would be the destroyer of your ego so that you can merge in divine consciousness. Vishnu is the preserver, and Brahma is the creator. Brahma comes from the word to vomit, and he vomited forth the universe as we know it. This is the goddess of the Ganges. She's shown with a crocodile. This is very unusual to see. Ganga. These guys are just sitting out and hanging out on the edge of the Ganges. And they're memorialized, you know, they're saying this, we remember these guys. We remember the pioneers, the psychonauts, the people who took drugs, people who meditated, the people who asked who I am, trying to find out what's going on here. So it all has to do with light. It's an internal light. This is Kali. This is the first main bridge in Rishikesh. You can see it going across there. It's called it's called Lakshman Jula Bridge. And this building has 100 altars in it, maybe 150 altars in it. And the monkeys hang out and people give them food. And in the old days, this was the only bridge. And in 1982 or something like that, they built the Ramjula Bridge, and that changed the whole logistics of Rishikesh. In Rishikesh, the water's still clean, and it's still clean down to Haridwar, and then after that, it's a mess. So we're working our way up to Gangotri, to the source of the Ganges. Now, they've changed all of the rules now. This is the main landing place. When I was there was none of this, so this is still a popular time. Now you have to get a permit. They have no more horses going in or donkeys, and they've kicked all the sadhus out. I'm going to take you up into an area now that's prohibited to go to. So this is the walk. You're walking like 26 kilometers into the valley. So when I went up, I hiked this in 1982, and I'm totally by myself. There's nobody else around. I'm 2/3 of the way in. It's really seriously cold, and all of a sudden I start to see this form start to manifest, and I go, oh, I said, God's going to appear. Shiva's going to appear. It's going to happen. It's going to be really great. And it started to go like this. It's just got more, and I was totally still like this in complete meditation, and this lake, ice lake, cracked 150 meters all the way across like a cannon. It went kaboom like that. And what I was seeing was the stress of the ice just before it cracked. And in a way, it was God. So this is October. Everything closes October 27th, November 1st. Now, in the old days, you had to walk from Joshimath to here, which would have taken you like 3 weeks. And now you can drive right to the beginning of the hike. So, in the old days, there was all sadhus and holy men up here, and now they've all fled. This is a little bit like the paintings of Nicholas Roerich, this one here. This is inside the Shiva cave. These are little offerings and things like that. So I've hiked another 3 hours above where anybody goes to a place called Tapovan, which is now off limits. And so this is a solar heater for making tea. So the sun is reflected in the reflector here and boils the water just in 5 minutes. Andy Warhol, eat your heart out. This is the Baba who was living in the cave up there, and he stayed there all through the winter, and he's up high, high, high. Now this is the actual source of the Ganges here. This is where this is all emerald, all the ice is emerald, and the water's literally coming up down there. Now the glacier was 26 kilometers down, and it's melted back 26 kilometers like that. And they're limiting the number of tourists that can go, the people who want to hike in. That's why they're doing the permits, and they're saying their breath is melting the glaciers. That's the actual place. Probably the most pain I ever experienced is I went naked into the water here, and I got up to here and I was okay. And when I put my head underneath the water, it was like a brain freeze for like 5 minutes. I was screaming. So this is where I camped out here. It snowed. I was chased out by a snowstorm. And I went out in the middle of the night, and it was full moon, and there were 10,000 droplets of water, all reflecting the full moon. This is my kitchen. We were driving out, and this was the landslide, which happens all the time. People die, cars crash, they go off the side of the road. The roads are in terrible condition. This is a car with goats in the back. When we came across that landslide, I turned to the driver, I said, well, let's go back and we'll stay, in such and such a town. He says, no, they'll have it cleared in an hour, and they did. So this is a lovely honor to Shiva and Ganesha and Parvati, very primitive. This is another old Shiva lingam. When the Muslims came in and took over India, they destroyed 100,000 temples and killed all the priests. So we're giving all the proceeds from this show to the children of Gaza through the Save the Children Foundation through my friend Katerina Harlow. This is a woman giving Vishnu a foot massage.
For satellite TV?
You bet. How to get the Lakers and Celtics. I mean, there's beggars with cell phones in India. People that look like they're on their last legs. Ring, ring. So this is the great temple of Badrinath. So we've seen Yamunotri and we've seen Gangotri, and this is Badrinath that you can drive to. This is the most holy temple to Vishnu. And it was the Shankaracharya of Joshimath who founded these holy sites. And we're going to go into the Shankaracharya's personal temple in about 2 minutes. Great colors, huh? This is a snake stone that somebody brought down and preserved and created an altar out of it. And they're doing a very good job in India of carrying all the trash out at the end of the season. They just pack it up. They're carrying everything out. So it's a vast improvement over the old times. In 2012, India will be the most populous nation in the world. It will pass China. It's a nightmare in the happening. By 2025, they're going to have 500 million cell phones. It's an electronic nightmare. This is the cave that Vyasa was in. This is a statue of Vyasa. This is the actual place where he wrote the Mahabharata, according to pilgrimage lore, 5,111 years ago. The first time that I went to find this cave, this woman's being carried. The first time I went to the cave, I was arrested by the Indian military. I was asking, and nobody was going, and they were having tensions with China, and so the military arrested me, and I said, look, you guys, I said, blindfold me and take me to the cave. But they wouldn't. They laughed and they turned me back. So people are carried in like that if they're light. This is a famous place called Bhima's Pool that's written about in the Mahabharata. This water shot out of the mountain. It wasn't even a river. Indian women wear bangles, and everybody's buying gold now. Everybody. Big time. These are the old guys. This guy's still alive in the middle. This is Krishna. Beautiful picture of Krishna. Say our entire known universe is a hole in Krishna's flute. So this is Badrinath. I hiked way, way up in the end until I was chased out by a storm. There's hot springs down in the bottom. There's a little river across, a little bridge across the river. This is where people bathe and they wash their clothes off to the side. The main hot pool is so hot you literally can't get in it, which is good. And this is the river coming down like this. Amazing rock right there in the middle. And my hotel was right across the river from the temple. This is a 2,500-year-old tree. This is coming out now from Badrinath. We're coming out and we're back in Joshimath where we took the funicular up. And this is the walkway to the Shankaracharya's temple. Now the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, they never publicized it, but his teacher was the Shankaracharya of Joshimath. And this is his throne. These are the old masters. Nobody ever gets to see this room. The lineage been passed master to student, and that's one of the reasons they call India the mother. So this is the two rivers coming together here, the one from Gangotri and the one from Badrinath. The Indians really understand this. I mean, if the Indians were living here in Carmel, there'd be a temple down by where the Carmel River comes into the ocean. So I threw in just a couple of little extra things here, just to honor the old teachers as we're wrapping this up. This is the new Babaji's tomb. who was discovered in 1970s. He died maybe 1983 and had a very, very large following. He sat up on a mountain for 45 days and never moved. 15,000 people spontaneously showed up from out of nowhere when he was discovered. And he died young. This is a traditional dhuni. That's the holy fire pit of the Shiva Babas. A really nice one. This is a picture of my guru. This is a fabulous picture of Hanuman that's associated with Baba Haridas in Mount Madonna Center. He's got Rama and Sita in his heart, and he's opening up like this. And Hanuman is known for real service and real devotion. These are the feet of Neem Karoli Baba, who was the teacher of Richard Alpert Ramdas. This is what Neem Karoli Baba looked like. He was a rascal teacher. And he's revered in certain parts of the Himalayas. Who are these guys? Where did they come from? Who am I? How did I get here? This is Mother Mira Alfaso. She was the spiritual partner of Aurobindo, and she was in a group with Rudolf Steiner and the woman who wrote Alexandria David Neal. They were all in the same group in the old days. She went to Japan, she met Aurobindo, she came back, and she lived with them the rest of her life. And this is her in old age. And they're buried in Pondicherry, and their tomb is considered to be maybe the greatest tomb in the world. This is her as a young woman. Can you imagine? Oh my God. Now this is interesting. This is Aurobindo. Aurobindo went into retreat. He was famous. His most famous book to read, if you're going to read something awesome, is called Savitri. It's a 1,000-page poem to the Divine Mother, all in rhyme, with words that you don't even know. I don't even know. He had an incredible vocabulary. He was educated in England. He went into retreat on November 23rd, and I think it's 1926, and he never came out after that. And he was never photographed from that day until this photograph. And he said the day that he went into retreat, he said, Krishna has been born. And it was the exact day that Sai Baba was born. So you can make of that what you will. And the reason he was photographed here is that Henri Cartier-Bresson, the famous photographer, came through Pondicherry and took this last photograph of him. So, he also took pictures. He was at Ramana Maharshi's ashram the day that Ramana Maharshi died. So he has phenomenal pictures of Ramana Maharshi all tied up and dead, ready to be buried. mother continued after Aurobindo died for many years. This is an early Aurobindo. He was the fighter for Indian independence way before Gandhi, 20 years before Gandhi. And he was imprisoned, and he had an enlightenment experience in prison. So this is yours truly saying pretty close to goodbye. And we're back in Om Sweet Om. I put this in for Leia. Bye-bye. So tomorrow night's full moon. It's going to be a lunar eclipse tomorrow night. So look in the papers, go online, find out when it is, and pay real close attention. It's going to be very, very powerful. And also, February 14th is a huge astrological lineup, and we should really, really pay attention. It has to do with the age of Aquarius, when the moon is in the seventh sun, and Jupiter is aligned with Mars. And so what we remember as we're going through all of our attachments of Valentine's Day, remember that Amachi says, you take I love you, and you take out the I, and you take out the you. Good night. Thanks. So thank you to everybody in internet land. I love you. Goodbye. And thanks for coming, everybody. Thanks for coming.
You look great.
Take this. How do I take this off? I don't know. Otherwise, we're going to hear it.